not know
We are on air.
it. Okay, we can't hear it. It's stuttering. It's sputtering, going in and out.
We are on air. Go ahead, please.
Oh, hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, and this is Kenny Hendricks with Change Matters Solutions. We're here for another one of our lively talk shows. We hope you join us. If you want to join us, the number is 704-951-5030. The conference line is 641-715-3660, and the passcode there is 549032. And if you want to join in and you're on that line, go ahead and hit star 61. If you want to send us an email, send that to changematters99 at gmail.com. Again, this is Change Matters Solutions. I'm Kenny Hendricks.
And I am Colette Williams, and thank you for joining us. It is a little bit after 8 a.m. here in sunny, very cold, rainy California, LA, California. Thank you for joining us. We've got a very live show for you this morning. This morning, we're going to talk about the election and what's going on on the road to the White House. And Ken, as I was telling you just a little while ago, I stayed up to watch Jimmy Kimmel last night, and the POTUS was on Jimmy Kimmel, and that is the President of the United States. He is so suave until it is just incredible. He puts the suave in suave. He's very, very funny. And they talked and asked about him leaving and asked him why he couldn't stay another 4 years. He said if he stayed another 4 years, Michelle would divorce him. But apparently, he, apparently they love him. Folks love him. I don't care what other people say. That man is loved. He is respected. He is the man.
You
And
know,
he did.
people
Uh
on the
huh.
right
They
probably
don't want. They don't want to say it, but they love him too.
no, they know they hate him. Late last year, they were saying he's going to declare martial law and to
Oh
make sure he
yeah.
stays in another 4 years. And a matter of fact, a friend of mine who I thought was reasonably astute,
Intelligent.
yeah, on these sorts of items because I know he reads a lot and he's always sending me stuff. He says, you know, Obama's going to declare martial law. I went,
Yes.
really? Yeah.
Mm.
You know, that is not going to that is not going to happen. So I put something on Facebook. This was several couple of months ago. Said, okay, all you folks, there's no martial law. There's no white slaves. Jade Helm hasn't taken over. You know, and they had all these conspiracy theories of things that he was going to do to try to make himself into a monarch. It's pretty ridiculous. Pretty
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It is very, very ridiculous. The man has so much integrity. He exudes integrity. To me, he does. He really, really does. And he's very, very uh, calculating about what he says. He doesn't make missteps. He doesn't say, "Oops, I didn't mean to say that." Well, what I meant was he doesn't go through all that. He's very smooth in his delivery. He does hesitate in that delivery, but nevertheless, he is very, very smooth. He's very thoughtful in his delivery. And in mean tweets on Jimmy Kimmel, he read all his mean tweets, and they were hilarious. And then, of course, the real moron, he sent in a mean tweet. He
Oh, God.
said, the president will go down as the worst president in the history of this country. And the president read it. He had this look on his face and he said, at least I'll go down as president. Wow, it was funny.
Oh,
Oh,
boom.
it was
Drop
funny.
the
Oh my
mic.
God. Drop the mic. Oh, and the look on his face said, yeah, MF, I have been president 2 times. Oh my God, it was so funny. It was so funny. And you could hear the audience just, oh Lord, it was so funny.
Well, you
It
know,
was
the
so funny.
interesting thing is that, you know, he's behind in the polls. I
Polls are
think,
phony. Yeah.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
telling supporters he's winning. Really, fool? Really? In what? On what planet? Maybe on Pluto, but not here, buddy.
Well, I had to
Oops, not
remind people
buddy.
that Romney didn't believe the polls either. If you recall,
Yeah.
right around this time, Romney was saying The polls were skewed. They're doing all these weird things
Yeah,
with the polls. So we're winning. We're gonna win.
yeah,
And
they voted for me. Mhm.
you can YouTube the meltdown that the people at Fox News had when they finally had to announce that Obama had won a second term. The people on Fox News, I think it was Megyn Kelly, they made her get up out of her chair and go down into the basement where all the number crunchers were, the bean counters, and ask them, "Are you guys sure?" And they said, "Yep." They had a complete meltdown. Sarah Palin
Oh,
was on there. What
it
is the
can't be. It
term
can't be.
about her face being broke?
Yeah.
She had a
It,
meltdown. Karl Rove had a meltdown. It was incredible.
well, guess what? They better get ready. They better get ready. And then Jimmy Kimmel asked the president, why is it that people do not like Hillary Clinton? Why is it that they are just so against her? And he says, it's really about the fact that they don't trust her. Why is it that they just don't trust her? And he said, you know what? Nobody's perfect. However, she's very trustworthy. She's been there. She's got the experience. She does not go out and pretend. She is a person who tells it like it is, even though you think that she is mistrusted, you think that she's untrustworthy, she's dishonest, all these things. She really isn't. And his delivery was, for me, based on what I saw, he is very sincere. He does not come across in that setting as a person that you could not trust or a person that was being dishonest. And he talked about why he trusts her and why he thinks that she needs to be president. In fact, he called her the president. He said when she takes over, when she becomes president, she will be. So, as far as I'm concerned, it looks like that's exactly where he and the country need to go. That's where he is. And he is encouraging people. And he didn't say that, but you can tell in his delivery and the things that he says, he's encouraging everybody that votes to vote in that direction.
Well, she's got
Because
the Clintons have baggage. They've got a lot of baggage
everybody has baggage.
going
Everybody
back
has baggage.
to.
There are no perfect people.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There are no perfect people. And again, I've said it before. I've made it clear that, I'm not a Hillary fan. I wasn't a Bill fan either. But given the two choices, I think we've got some of the things that, the reason that people don't like Hillary, to me, a lot of them are typical politician sorts of things. Politicians lie. Politicians say they're going to do one thing and they don't do it. They don't get things done. It's a game. I don't expect them to do. When a politician comes in, the president comes in and says he's got a list of 20 things he wants to get done. If he gets 5 done, that's
Right.
doing something. That's doing something.
Exactly.
So I have no
Exactly.
problem there. But given the choices we're faced with someone who knows the system. When these folks saying we want an outsider's not going to be able to get anything done. Show someone who knows the system is actually at some point, she can be controlled. Donald Trump is completely out of control. He is a
Out of
he is a
control.
petulant child.
Yes, he is.
I read an
Yes.
article from his ghostwriter yesterday that said he is a man with a 200-word vocabulary, which I
Wow.
completely believe. The man, and he says he has. He
Are
said
you sure it wasn't a two-word vocabulary?
he speaks like a second grader, and they talked about that.
Like I
He
said, a two-word vocabulary.
when you hear him say something different, it's because he heard it from somebody else. He
Exactly.
After Hillary started talking about his temperament, he started saying, "I have a great temperament," and there are several other things that don't come to mind right now where he never talked about it until somebody said it, and then he comes back and says it because the man he's astonishingly ill informed, not very well spoken at all. He's got, I mean, to me,
None.
no redeeming qualities at all, and he
None.
gets into these Twitter battles, these fights with anybody. It is
Yeah. And
very
who's doing that at 3 o'clock in the morning? What person of integrity? What person running for president? What man of any distinction is going to get into a Twitter battle at midnight? at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Really?
And you know, he says he will only accept the election if he wins.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? You're going to have a hard way to go, bud.
Well,
It's
you know,
very,
it's and he's stoking people. He's stoking people. He's getting people really really pissed off. He's talking about voter fraud.
yeah.
Yeah, let me play this clip for you that I've got where he's talking about uh, the voter fraud, and he's only going to accept the election if he wins. Let me see if I can get this played.
Well, the other
All
thing
of the
is, oh,
people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election
it is.
if I win.
Oh, come on.
And they go crazy. He's stoked in again. I've said this all along. I don't think he wants to be president. He's having fun. He absolutely adores being in front of the camera. That's
Hmm.
he's at his best doing things
Right.
extemporaneously. He doesn't like having
He's
to.
not at his best.
Well,
He's
that
just
for his
a
people,
bunch of,
he's at his
yeah, for
best.
his people. Exactly.
He can't stay on message. He really has no policies. They
Has
write
no message.
they write it up for him,
No
and
message.
he can get spend about 10 minutes on it, and then he flies off the handle because that's what he
Right.
wants to do. He just wants to be in front of the crowd. He loves the adulation. He loves the people clapping and everything for him. And if he could do that, and I said this before, if he could do that for the rest of his life, he'd be fat, dumb, and
He'd be
happy.
okay. Yeah, he'd be okay. And he is fat, dumb, and happy. He is that.
Mm.
He definitely is that. But he just doesn't have what it takes. He is not fit as the news reporters and the president and his opponent have said. He just isn't fit. He does not have what it takes to be president. And just as the president said, if he gets rattled by something small on the
Hmm.
campaign trail, what is he going to do if by some chance he got there? What is he going to do then? And the world cannot have somebody like that. The world cannot have someone who has no control of themselves, no control of their emotions, gets pissed off, calls people names, insults people, plays the nanny 2-year-old game. He is a second grader.
like
Really?
dur- like during the debate when he said, and the way he said it, Putin has no respect for it. That person. It's like
Yeah.
wow, and then Hillary had a great comeback. She said, that's because he needs a puppet. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not a puppet. I'm
Oh,
not a
you're
puppet.
a puppet.
You're the
You're a
puppet.
puppet.
And he said it
You're a
like
puppet.
3 times. It's like,
Yeah. You're a puppet. I'm not a puppet. You're a puppet. I'm
yeah,
What president does that?
yeah.
What
It is.
president does that? Not one that I know. Not one. And it's really interesting that he does not even begin to think about how presidents or presidential candidates conducted themselves prior to going to the White House. Everyone that conducted themselves in the presidential campaign, they never went through the kind of things that he does. And I'm
It's
sure people
called
will
it's
say,
called a modicum of decorum, of
"Oh
which he
no,
has none.
yeah, yeah, his he has no decorum. He really doesn't. He really doesn't. And the idea that he can be mocked and what's his name, Alec Baldwin,
Oh, he does a
does
great job.
he does a good moron. He
I think
does a
I think that's the best of all of them, of
Yeah, I think
everyone that's
so
ever
too.
been done.
Oh, he's good. He is really good. And he says, why is it that the media uh, they mock everything, every dumb thing I say? Oh my God, they come back and why do they do it? Because it's true. It's me, and it is. And the two Baldwin brothers, there is one Baldwin brother that is a supporter of that person, and then Alec Baldwin does the spoof, and it is just hilarious. It is just absolutely hilarious. But the other part of that is that it's so true. It is so absolutely right on. He is just not a bright person. He's not a bright person. His kids ought to be embarrassed. His wife ought to be embarrassed. And I'm sure most of you who are in the listening audience, I'm sure you saw the Al Smith dinner, and they people are talking about it went in the wrong direction. It of course he took it to a different level, the lowest you
Hmm.
could find
Yep.
at the dinner, and Hillary is so corrupt, really. And if you could see the expression on the faces of the people who were seated behind him, oh my God. And I'm sure when they finished that, they said he won't get asked to come back. He will not be invited again. How in the world? Really? How in the world? And he had the audacity to say something about, I forgot how he began it, but he said, Michelle Obama gave a speech. And the interesting thing, no, he says Michelle Obama gave a speech and everybody loved it. Everybody just loved it. But when Melania gave the same speech, they jumped all over her.
That was actually a good one. That was actually a good one.
That was that was crazy. Yeah,
that
your
that
wife
that was a good.
plagiarized her. That was plagiarism. And you're going to use that as a joke?
Hmm.
Really? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good. Yeah, that just goes to show you how dumb the two of you are. That
Well,
was.
the Republican Party is on life support, and the
Hmm.
hospital is having power outages. That's how
Yeah,
that.
they are.
Right now, Breitbart escalates the war on Paul Ryan. Okay,
Oh my God.
they got rid of Boehner because he wasn't conservative enough. They put Paul Ryan in there. Now they don't like him.
Oh
You know,
Lord, yes. And Paul
they are upending the Republican Party like we've never seen before. But
he's
again,
on life support. They're pulling the plug tomorrow. They
the
are going to pull the plug. He has
they
no breath left.
they allowed this to happen when the Tea Party started and the birther movement and
Yeah.
all these far right wing wackos and Sarah Palin and all the crazy things she said. And it made it right for somebody like Trump to come along and basically take it as far as it can go. The hypocrisy, they talked about we want somebody who is truly a conservative, a truly evangelical, has conservative credentials and conservative bona fides, all of this. And Trump is none of that. He
No,
is absolutely none of the things that they're looking for.
no,
You
he's
know,
not.
he
And
changes position, and politicians change their positions all the time. That's nothing new. But everything he said he was, the moment he decided to run, he changed. You know, and if you, it was
because
during
it's
the,
always been all about him.
yeah,
Excuse me. It's always been all about him. So instead of him making it about the country and making the country uh, brighter, better, doing something for the people, it's all about him. It's all about him. And it doesn't go any further than that. He is simply a man stuck on himself, in love with himself. And it takes Jimmy Kimmel to really show you how crazy he is. Everything begins and ends with I. Everything,
yeah,
the beginning I, the middle I, the end I. I'm better, brighter, smarter. And he isn't. He really isn't. He is not a smart man. And for those people that say, yeah, he's a smart man, he has all these hotels, he built businesses. You know what, people? Take a look at that. Do your homework. Do your homework. He is not a smart man because smart men in business, first of all, will never file bankruptcy 4 times. Smart men in business will never say they didn't pay taxes because they used all of the tax advantages. He took advantage of all of that. Smart men don't do that. Billionaires don't do that, and they don't need to do that. And they conduct themselves in a way that will not put them out front where people have an opportunity to scrutinize everything that they do and say, he is not a smart man. He is not a smart man. And I'm telling you, we were in Vegas and the hotel was dark. He is not a smart man. Smart men never decide, I'm going to have water, I'm going to have hats, I'm going to have t-shirts, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
steaks and
He's
all
looking
this,
for, yeah,
and
he's
they've all
looking,
failed. Every one
and
of
they
them
all
has
failed.
failed. The only thing
They
he's actually succeeded in is hotels and his golf courses. Even the casino failed.
right.
You know, and who loses
Everything.
money running a casino?
Exactly.
You know, and you talk about him not caring about anything.
Nobody
It's
does
about
that.
him.
Nobody.
That's why when he said something about well, I think it was when Ryan didn't support him initially. He said, "Well, I won't support Ryan, and basically I'll take my toys and go home." He
Yeah.
says, "I'm making a lot of money for the Republican Party. I'll just take it elsewhere." They're
He receives,
threatening each
right.
other. Sarah
He
Palin
re-
said, "If these politicians don't vote for Trump, they will be held accountable."
he received $17 million in '05 for damage to his hotel in Florida. He received 17 million. That does not make him smart. That makes him corrupt. He received 17 million from the insurance company. Okay? And people will say, well, that makes him smart. He knew he could file uh, for the damage of his hotel, so he's smart. Really? If he's got so much money, he didn't need to. And not only did he not need to file, he should have made sure from the very beginning that his hotel could withstand the damage that could have been done. He is not a smart man. Smart men don't conduct themselves the way he does. Smart men don't. Smart men who are men of integrity, whose character is above reproach, that is not how they conduct themselves. I know a whole lot of smart businessmen. They do not even come close to that. So come on. Come on, people. No, do your homework.
There's an
Do
article on New Century Times um, where it talks about Trump no longer wants to run for president, sabotages his own campaign.
right.
People are people who are actually can see things are starting to really realize what's going on. And they start this article out by saying, let's face it, Trump never really wanted to be our commander in chief in the first place. Many reports have
Wow.
explained that Donald Trump could be using this election for a different motive. His lack of
Mm-hmm.
experience and temperament are not the only things holding him back. He's tried, and now the talk is he may be starting Trump TV. Uh, as I think just starting a few days ago, they started a Facebook live stream, and
Mm-hmm.
Boris Epstein, one of his surrogates, was on there, and they had, I think, Scotty Nell Hughes and a couple of other folks uh, talking. And as a matter of fact, I think they might have streamed it during the debate. So it's like they're testing the waters, trying to
Mm-hmm.
stream live information, and they're going to see how that goes. It looks like, and Roger Ailes, of course, is involved.
Oh,
Since he's
God.
out at
Yes.
Fox.
Since
You
there's
know,
nothing else to
and
do,
again,
right?
if you're trying to become president, how do you take a CEO of a company who was ousted for sexual harassment and have him on your team,
How
publicly
does
have him
he
on your
become
team?
your advisor?
Yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
He's your advisor and he was just ousted for misbehavior? That's like saying the devil in a dark blue suit can come over here. I'll take his information. Really? And even Ben Carson,
Oh God.
even
Yeah,
Ben,
he's had to jump off the Trump train.
oh
But here's
God,
another. Trump was unhappy with his deal as host and star of The Apprentice. Simply put, he wanted more money. He had floated the idea of possibly running for president in the hopes that the attention from that would make his negotiating position stronger. If he's a billionaire, why does he need more money
yeah.
from The
And why does he
Apprentice?
need right? And why
Yeah.
does he need to have those backward so-called strategic plans to get more money? Because he ain't a billionaire, y'all. Because he doesn't.
I think he's got a couple of billion. I
I
do
think
not
he's
believe for
got
one moment.
maybe one, and that's it.
I
I
think
don't believe for one
they
minute
some people
that there's
estimate maybe as many as four, but
no,
most
no,
experts are saying he's nowhere near over 10 billion like he says he is.
oh please.
And
Yeah,
if you
one,
listen to
one,
if you
if
listen to him,
one if that.
I'm sorry.
I said one if that.
Yeah, I think he's got a couple of billion, but he's nowhere near what he says at work. Okay. Let's give the phone number out for our listeners again. We're at area code 704 951-5030, so you can call in on that number. We've got a conference line, 641-715-3660, and the participant code is 549032. And if you're on that line and you decide you want to chime in, just hit star 61, and we'll get you in on the conversation. And again, we're just going back and forth talking about the election. We didn't have a guest this week, so we're getting closer to the election. I did go out and do my civic duty, and I voted yesterday. Thank you very much. There wasn't a very long line.
Yay.
Uh, and so that's done. I did hear
Okay.
that I think is in Georgia, one of the counties in Georgia, there's only one precinct open for an entire county of um, 90,000 people. So there's long
Wow.
lines. So
Yeah.
I would encourage people get out there early to vote, because if you start getting these long lines, and the Republicans are going to be doing things to try to suppress the vote with these long
Hmm.
lines, fewer precincts open. They're going to ask you for IDs that are crazy.
And
So
they're
get
not
out.
supposed to. They're not supposed to.
Ken and Colette, we have been
Sir.
seeing in Charlotte. Well, I don't live in Charlotte. I live in a different county, but Charlotte is in Mecklenburg County in North Carolina, and there have been people posting images of the very, very, very long lines in Charlotte.
Mm.
I have not voted yet, but voting for us started yesterday in my county. It started in North Carolina on October the 20th, but our early voting polls did not open until yesterday here in the county that I vote in. So I will be going early this week. I never worry about the long lines because I live in a rural area with, not a large population like Charlotte, which has close to 1 million residents.
Mm.
Yeah, and the good
That's
news is that they can't count the ballots yet, but in terms of
right.
the participation, more Democrats are out voting. 9 of the 12 states that uh, have started early voting, nine more Democrats have voted than Republicans. That's not to say they actually voted Democrat or Republican, but more Democrats than Republicans had voted by a pretty significant margin, if I recall. So that's
Right.
good news.
Well, here they're reporting that the Texas voting bloc is doing wonders. It's on the ticker on GMA. The Texas is doing outstanding in early voting. And here there are, oh, I had the number, but I went to a training on Saturday and they told us the number of polling places that are open for early voting. Oddly enough, there aren't any rather in the northern part of LA County, nothing in Pasadena, nothing in Altadena.
Mm.
So the early voting up there is unless you go to the Valley or somewhere in LA, there are no early polling places. So it's I'm sure that they did it based on the population of the cities.
Yeah.
So
Right now,
you would, yeah.
Republicans voted more in Florida, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Democrats lead in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Virginia. That was
Okay.
as of yesterday.
Hmm.
So that's what it looks like now. But again, if people get out and vote, and I think that's really going to be the key here, and we're going to be coming up to a break in a couple of minutes. But I think the key is if it's going to be voter participation, I think the
Yeah.
Democrats
Yeah.
win, and they're looking for a landslide. They're
Oh
really,
yeah, they
really
are.
looking for a
Right.
landslide, whether it's a
Yeah.
popular vote landslide or electoral. It looks like an electoral college landslide. One of the charts I saw had Hillary up over 300 electoral votes, with Trump at, like, had 179 or something like that.
Yeah. I
So
did
it
see that. I did see
it
that.
could be fairly significant if every so folks, if you're listening, please get out
Jesus
and vote.
Christ.
Try to vote
Mm.
early if you can. If you can't, just make sure you vote, but try to vote early. That way, hopefully, you can avoid some of the long lines. Sometimes you may not, like Scotty just said. People are posting things showing some long lines in certain areas. So give yourself time, and your job, your employer has to let you
Has to
off.
give you the time off.
Yes.
Yes.
Before we go to break, we're having issues with the studio line. That's that 704 line. The calls come in, but it won't allow me to add them without putting the host on hold. So we're going to revert back to the conference line only. Let me give out that number. It is 641-715-3660. The participant code is 549032#. Hit *6 and 1 to comment on air. You could use the flash phone as well, but if you want to make a comment from the conference line, hit *6 and 1, or I'll assume that you are just tuned in listening through your phone. We do have a caller on the conference line. We'll go to break first, and then we'll come back.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scotty.
You're welcome.
And we are Change Matters. I am Colette Williams. Thank you for joining us. We're going to break, and we'll be back.
You're listening to Change Matters Solutions on Black Talk Radio, hosted by Kenny Hendricks and Colette Williams.
Okay, and we are back. I am Colette Williams, and this is Change Matters. Thank you for joining us. I believe we have a caller on the line.
Yes,
Scotty?
area code 323. You're on Change Matters Solutions with Kenny Hendricks and Colette Williams. Please state your name and go ahead with your question or comment.
Good morning. This is Andrea James, today's
Hi,
entrepreneur.
good
How you
morning.
guys doing this morning?
Hi,
Good.
Andrea.
How are you?
Good.
The fact that you're talking about, thank you for having me on the show, and the ancestors and what we're talking about today is just, I wanted to bring up a point. I saw something on the internet this morning that the people that are out voting early, the voting machines are jumping.
They're
Do you know what that
jumping?
means?
No.
Jumping. There was a lady that she and her husband went to vote yesterday, and they realized that they both voted for Hillary. But as they voted for Hillary, their vote, the machine jumped and turned their vote over to Donald Trump.
Oh, no.
So
How did that happen? No.
she reported it to the people where she was, and the guy said, okay, well, we'll take this machine out of commission because it's not working. So there's some cheating going on. You really got to pay attention when
Right.
you go to the voting polls. If you vote for Hillary Clinton and you see that your vote has automatically jumped to Donald Trump, immediately report it. That
Yeah.
goes without saying.
Yeah,
Report it.
that
That's
goes,
just
yeah.
asinine. Really, as you say, Colette? Are you, huh?
Yes.
He doesn't want to
yeah.
be president, but
Yeah, those kind
what's
of
this
things are
all
happening.
about?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the machine behind him. I still don't think he wants to be president. I think that's the people behind the scenes.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Where are they
Some of the
doing that
election
at?
people.
I have a
I
question.
still don't know. I don't know where it was, but nationwide, we need to pay attention.
Why
Yeah,
are
I-
do.
why are
And other things that are underhanded.
why are
Go ahead,
voters allowing electronic voting machines? Did they not learn anything from 2000, 2004,
Yeah, exactly.
or the Democratic primary? Because these things were being reported during the Democratic primary, and that's why the DNC has a class action lawsuit against it. So the electronic voting, that happened to me once. I had voted for Ralph Nader in 2000, and the vote flipped to Bush. And that was the last election in North Carolina that we had those electronic voting machines. Now we have paper ballots that you feed into the machine, but at least you have a paper ballot to record your vote. These electronic voting machines have been known to been hackable. There have been documentaries made about black box voting and what have you. So I just don't understand why voters in certain parts of the country are not taking their election commission to task and getting rid of these machines that we know,
Yeah.
again, are hackable and vulnerable.
Right. And
And
those are the things,
We're the
those are the
only we're
reasons.
the only nation that has voting, but we don't have one specific. As Scotty was just saying, we don't have one specific way of voting, and that I think that's something that really needs
yeah,
to
because
be
each state and
looked
county can
into.
do
Right.
it as the way they wish. But
And there should be
the
one uniform
there's
practice across the country. There should be one uniform practice. Every state does not need to say or should not have the right to say, we don't want to vote that way. That's where problems occur because everybody's doing something different.
well,
You
which is
It
why
needs
we
to
had
be,
the Civil Rights, the Voting Rights Act of
yes,
1964, because especially down in the South, all the things that they were doing, and of course that's been, they threw that out with those Supreme Court decisions.
yeah,
Um, but there's really no way to really make sure everything, because even if you have paper ballots, there's a way to do that. You have ballot stuffing, box stuffing, things like that. You've got people doing all sorts of things. So there's going to be some shenanigans going on all over the place. But it's interesting because they've been talking about voter fraud, and Trump has been talking about voter fraud, and he said just the other day something about 2 million dead people on the voter rolls. And of course everybody
mhm,
on the right is up in arms, because there's 2 million people. Now, first of all, if you whether or not you believe that, the thing about it is,
it is true.
what
It
well, the
is
thing about
true.
what is true, but guess what? Nobody calls the election commission and says, "Hey, Dad died, Mom died, my brother died, my sister died. Get
right,
them off
Right.
the voter
yeah,
roll." There's gonna
yeah,
be dead people on the voter roll, and
sure will,
a
sure
dead
will,
person on the voter rolls or registered does not equal a vote. You could have
right.
10 million, 20, 30 million people on the vote. If they don't cast a vote, it doesn't make a difference in the world.
Yes,
And
and
let
I
me tell
think
you,
it has
as
been shown there's very little actual voter fraud. But I mean, it is
31,
true.
31 and I've been researching this for the past few years. 31, and there was another guy that just came up. I think he's out of Loyola. He searched a billion votes. They came up with 31 cases of
right,
actual, and you
that's
have to
right.
be careful because
31
when they talk,
cases of
there's election fraud and there's voter fraud.
voter fraud,
Actual
exactly.
actual in-person voter fraud. That's the only thing all this voter ID laws are going to combat, is in-person voter fraud. They found 31 cases, and if you look at those cases, I haven't seen the detail yet, but if you look at them, I remember reading a couple of years ago, they found one. It was a woman who had, and mother was bedridden, so she went down and voted for her mother. There was another one. A guy voted for his
That
brother.
doesn't constitute voter fraud.
Well, technically, it's voter fraud because you can't do that, but it's not nefarious voter fraud.
No, it isn't.
And do you realize what you would have to do
I voted
to
for my mother.
how many people you would have to have doing that in order to really affect a national presidential election? And
31 is not,
how many
yeah, that's
people are going to
not,
get in the car, go down there, wait in line, vote for yourself, get out of that line, drive to another precinct, get in line, vote again,
yeah,
and possibly get in line to another precinct, vote again. Then they
no,
talk about all these people's names. You have to know who you're going to vote for. You can't just walk up and say, "Give me a name." You have to
uh-uh.
know whose name is on the
You're
voter
going to
rolls.
use that.
So,
And let me tell you
in
that,
terms of
that's not easy. There,
logistically getting it done, it is logistically impossible. You
and
know,
not only, yeah, and the other part of that, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to just get this out. I went to a training on Saturday about the polls and how we are to run the polls. And as you stated, Ken, logistically impossible, it's practically impossible straight across the board because the way that the registrar has everything set up, and boy, I hope I remember everything, the way it's set up, it's impossible for somebody to go in and say, my name is so and so, because one, you'll never see the names on that master list. There are three master registers, and it's impossible for people to come in multiple times to go and vote. It just doesn't happen. And based on what we saw in that training and what I know, and this is the second time I've been a poll worker, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I don't care how many times he touts voter fraud or election fraud or this is phony. He is a liar because he just doesn't know.
I have a
He
question for
doesn't.
both of you. And just trying to be objective. As journalists, we should be objective. I'm not
Sure.
saying you two are journalists. You're talk hosts, and you are entitled to give your opinions on things. But what about the Clinton campaign and the Obama administration also putting out there false information about the Russians hacking the elections? I mean, to me, they're doing the same thing Trump is doing. What are your thoughts?
Now I've heard them talk about that. From what I understand, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, is they seriously believe all of the intelligence people believe that the Russians are doing that.
Do
So if
they
there's
believe
other,
or no?
I'm sorry.
Do they believe or do they know?
Well, they say they know it's coming from the Russians because what
Okay,
you
who
can,
are these people though, Kenny? Who are these
I don't know.
unnamed people? How do we know that these people exist, and why do we trust the U.S. intelligence service? Is my question.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could only believe them so far, but again, that's what they
Right.
are saying, and it's possible. It is possible that that's happening. Now, is it the absolute
Anything is
truth?
possible.
Is it the
Anything is
absolute truth?
possible.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm
But I
just
haven't
saying,
I
not
haven't
in
heard
terms of the
anyone.
hacks, not in
Yeah.
terms of the hacks, which they have not offered any proof whatsoever that the Russian government is behind these hacks. But just the other day, they admitted that the U.S. government was behind the Stuxnet virus. So they hack other countries as well. So I find that to be very hypocritical. But I'm talking about the election. On one side of the mouth, you're saying that the Russians may be trying to hack the elections for Donald
Hmm.
Trump, but then on the other side of their mouths, they're saying, "Oh, that's not possible. It's
Well,
not
I
possible."
haven't heard anybody from the other side come back with any argument
I haven't
saying
either. I
saying it's
haven't
not,
either.
unequivocally it's not. So all I've got to go on is what the Obama administration is saying. And if Hillary during the debate said there was like 17 intelligence officials that said we know that it's coming from the Russians, and also they briefed Hillary and they briefed Trump. And Trump came during the debate. He said, "We don't know if it's the Russians," but he had already been briefed, and they said it is the Russians. Now, is that the absolute
How would
truth?
he know?
I
How would
don't.
he know?
No. He says he doesn't know, but he was briefed. They told him that it was.
But again, they
Mm.
offered no proof whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know what proof they're showing. I don't know what proof you can show. And without
Right.
leaking something. Again, I don't know. But again, I haven't heard anybody from the other side with the argument that this is an absolute lie. That no, it's not happening. So I can only go on that. So unless somebody has an argument the other side, I have to give at least a little bit of credence to what they're saying.
I
It,
give
it
no
may, it,
credence to what they say because they lie all the time.
well, governments lie. Yeah,
So
governments lie
that's
all the
supposed
time.
to be
Yeah.
okay, Ken?
No, but
No,
what?
it's not that
Yeah,
it's okay, but we have to understand that governments lie all the time, and they only say what they feel that they need to give the audience or the listeners or the people in the country. They're not going to give.
9/11 was a big lie. You
Yeah,
know,
they're not going to give
go all
us
goes all the
all.
way goes all the way back to the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah,
You know,
they're not going to give us all the information. We have to find out ourselves. We have to be vigilant in making sure that we get the proper information. We have to go to those venues or those sites that will give us the facts. And we're still not going to get all of the facts. So we don't know for sure if the Russians are doing this. They tell us that they are. And what reason would they have to lie, or what reason would they have to tell us? So it's going to be a lie either way you slice it on either side. It's not going to be 100% honest, and we have to understand that. So in making sure that we vote, when it comes to voting, we have to get out there and be vigilant. We know that things are going to happen, and we've already been told that the other person is going to start touting how this is phony, it's rigged, it's all these things. And we know that's not true. We know that is not true.
but see, it's just
So
like just like he's not believing the polls now. But remember,
yeah, he says it's all phony.
but he liked the polls when he was ahead.
Yeah.
Every
And
every 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 every
not gonna
every
care.
rally, he starts with, "Hey, we're doing great in the polls. Hey, we're doing great in the polls. Hey, we're doing great in the polls."
Somebody's
But
telling
now
him
you're
to say
behind, and you're saying the polls are skewed.
right,
He wants it both ways. And remember, Romney didn't believe the polls. You know,
right. And
so
remember Gore didn't. Gore and that fiasco. Remember that. So we're not going to go back to that. We are not going to go back to that fiasco. So not only do we have to be vigilant and we have to advocate that what took place back then cannot happen this time. Cannot happen. And it's I don't want to say that it's scary, but it is what's the word, Ken? It's not scary, but being one of the two people in charge of a polling place, that is a task.
it's a
That is
daunting
a task.
task. Yeah, yeah.
Daunting task. That's the word. It's a
And
daunting
I just had a
task.
friend message me on Facebook, and he's actually a right winger, and he's saying that, let me see, I think he said up in Chicago or somewhere, that the machines are doing the opposite. They're taking votes for Trump and giving them to Hillary.
That happened during the Democratic primary. So, I mean, I do research these issues, being that, well, you all know who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
do research these issues. But see, again, where was the Obama administration or any of these officials who were so concerned about the Russians hacking or anybody hacking? Where were they during the Democratic primary? Chicago reports, just like he's saying, that the votes were flipped from Trump to Hillary. Votes were flipped from Sanders to Clinton. Also in the New York, in one of the New York boroughs, that which was predicted to heavily go for Sanders, those people reported the same thing. Arizona, where the election, the the voter registration database
Voter
had been
registration. Yeah.
hacked and people's registration changed and they have a closed primary. So if you're a Democrat and your registration been changed to independent or Republican, where you can't vote in the
You can't
Democratic
vote.
primary. So again, this is why I try to stay objective as possible. And the DNC already has a class action lawsuit. So I'm not agreeing with Donald Trump or anybody. I don't care for either him or Clinton. But I'm saying the election has already been rigged from the Democratic side. So, I mean, the truth is the truth. How are we going to ignore all this evidence?
Well, we don't need to. We're not going to ignore it, but we're also going to make sure that people are voting and do our best to ensure that it is not uh, rigged, or there's nothing that we can do. But people who are in charge of polling places have to know that it's their responsibility
And that's
to
why I
be
commend you. I commend you, and I've said this in the past. And I'm glad here where I am, we have a number of black residents who are always poll watchers and what have you. We have to be part of the process, even
we
behind the
have
scenes. And I
we have
commend you, Colette, for volunteering.
And I think one has to be done at a national level. I'm not sure who would have be the type of person to kick this thing
oversee.
off, but
Yeah.
we talk about all these voting irregularities, and we always talk about it right around this time. And then after the election, we bitch and moan for a few months, and then we don't think about it until the next go
Right.
round, until the next 4 years.
Right.
And
Right.
again, after the 2000 debacle, somebody should have said, we really need to sit down and figure out how we're going to get this done. Again, like you mentioned, Colette, we've got all the states doing them their own way. You've got counties
There
doing
has
one
to
county
be
does.
one
When you start, and see,
uniform.
it even includes things like when you talk about these voter ID laws, closing polling places, you know, you know, not having enough early voting. Why are you making it so hard for people to vote?
Yeah,
You know, there,
exactly.
there there's corruption. Nobody's sitting down trying to figure out how to make it as the entire process. If you
Seamless.
have
Yeah.
one process
And it
across the country, it'd be a lot easier because you could control it easier. But when everybody's doing what they want to do, and again,
mhm.
my friend saying it said Illinois and Maryland. again, yeah, that may be happening, and it may be in LA where it's doing it the other way around. You know,
Hmm.
it's, are these actually happening, or is it just people saying it? I don't know. And I don't know how we get past it, because if no one can say, has a specific method for doing things, and it's never going to be scot free. It's never going to be 100%, because again, you can
Right.
stuff ballot boxes, you can do all sorts of things, but there's got to be some sense where it's got to be looked at and say we can't continue to have. And you're right, Scotty. I remember that during the primary. But again, I had issues with Bernie Sanders being an independent all these years and then running on the
Hmm.
Democratic machine, using
The
the Democratic
Democratic thing.
machine.
Right.
Trump, the same thing. He's never been a Republican, but he wants to run on the Republican machine. And I think there's some thought needs to be given to, if you're not a registered in that party, you can't run on that
Well,
Yeah.
party's
You
he
can't
platform.
just
actually
pop up
did
on that
register
ticket. Yeah.
as a Democrat, or he wouldn't have been able to run in their primary. I understand what you're saying. He's been a lifelong independent, just like Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Hmm.
he's been, other than a very
Nothing. Yeah.
undesirable, despicable human being all his
Yeah,
Right.
life.
That's the
deplorable.
party he's running. Yep. That's the
Yeah,
one. That's
so
his
I
ticket. Yeah.
understand that, but the process though, the process has to have integrity. And I
And that's
feel
that's
like the
it.
federal government needs to partner with the states and fund these elections and stop privatizing everything. See,
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
another
There you
part
go.
of the problem.
Uh-huh.
The elections are
Absolutely.
privatized.
Hmm.
And they can do whatever they want
Everything for
because
profit. Everything
pro-
for profit.
everything for profit. That's right. Everything for profit. And sitting in that extremely cold room going through that training, it really, really tells you a lot about the process because everything is a rig. Everything is about the process and making sure that people get in, they do what they're supposed to do, and they get out. It's very difficult for someone to go into a polling place and do something that's fraudulent.
But I have
That
to say
is,
this. I have to say this. Didn't mean to cut you off with regard to. Yeah, I'm against that as well. But the flip side of that is the government is not known for doing things very efficiently. When the
that's true.
military
That's true.
military was paying, was it $700 for a toilet seat?
Yep. Hmm.
$500 for a hammer and things like that. And as a matter of
And
fact,
now they're making,
I was watching
yeah,
something yesterday. They've got, I can't remember how many tanks that are sitting there
yeah.
unused, and now the military is wanting another few $1 billion to buy more tanks.
Well, we tolerate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a people, we
We have to
tolerate it.
be tolerant and we have to stop allowing those things to happen. Just like here in California, they're asking vets to pay back
Those
bonuses.
bonuses.
Those
Yeah.
those sign they're asking them to pay that back. Who does that? Really? They're asking veterans to pay back those bonuses, but this moron was paid $17 million on an insurance payment, and now they're finding out that the damage that he claimed, there was very little damage, especially there wasn't $17 million worth of damage. He got a $17 million payout for that hotel in Florida and no
You
damage.
know what that story says to me as a veteran? It says to me is that those were mercenaries. Those were mercenaries. When you had to pay people tens of thousands of dollars to get them to join the military, they are not joining for God, country, and liberty and freedom and all that kind of stuff. They are paid mercenaries. That's why. That's why they pay
Signing
them all
bonus.
that kind of money to entice them. I didn't
And
get a
now they
bonus.
want it back.
I didn't get a
Yeah.
bonus when I signed up for the military. They weren't offering bonuses for my particular field. What they were offering bonuses for is like infantry, artillery, and things of that nature. But I'm saying, hey, why do you have to entice people with all this money to get them
Mhm.
to join up? Aren't they supposed to just be doing it because they're patriots?
That's an
Yep.
interesting. I hadn't thought about it in those terms. That's really interesting.
Yep.
Because at that point, I guess you do become somewhat of a mercenary.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know what? They didn't say which area the veterans are in or what they specialized in. They're just reporting that veterans are being forced to pay this money back. And it's
Now,
not a little bit of money either. It's not a little bit of money. And I believe there's only been one that actually paid money back.
I
So I
read
haven't seen too many reports. I've seen one.
I read
But
an
that's
article that they had
absolutely
collected millions already. So it might not
right.
just be in California that this is going on. If they've
It
collected,
may not be. Yeah,
yeah,
it may
yeah,
not be.
yeah, and it's not veterans. It's soldiers.
National Guard and reserves.
National Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
depending on his
So
demanding soldiers pay back huge cash bonuses. 10,000 soldiers who were paid juicy cash bonuses to re-enlist in the California National Guard.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And they're being asked to pay it back. How do you send somebody and then they get back and you ask them to pay it back? How does that happen? Their lives aren't really? That just doesn't make any sense to me. You're asking them to pay it back. Why? And I don't believe I've even seen or read why they're asking them to pay it
Well,
back.
I did. It's somebody. It was somebody that was part of the enlistment program, was fudging things, fudging the paperwork, and those bonuses were supposedly not supposed to be paid, but somebody fudged some paperwork
Right,
to get people in.
recruiters. It
Yeah,
was
somebody.
recruiters because recruiters are under tremendous pressure to meet
Right.
numbers like
Make the offers.
salespeople are.
Yes.
And that is what I read is that these were the work of recruiters, that they weren't actually supposed to give out those bonuses, but they
Right.
created them so they could meet their
They
numbers because
did.
they're under pressure
Right.
to
Oh,
do
Kind of
this.
like what Wells Fargo did with the credit cards.
yes.
Giving people.
And kind of like, yeah, exactly
Yeah.
same way Los Angeles Unified did
Well,
with
where are all
overpayment
these
that they did not
patriots
pay
at?
enough money.
All these, I seeing all these Donald Trump supporters that want to
Oh
talk
yeah.
about,
Yeah,
this and that and the other. Why aren't they signing up?
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. And these people who have these debacles and they find out decades later that there's been some kind of impropriety, we want you to pay it back. What? The people that got the money have to pay it back because of someone on the inside who was uh, doing something illegal, fraudulent, but the recipient pays it back because of someone else's misdealings. Okay, I guess that's okay. That just, again, we hear, see things are reported all day long that just don't add up. They just don't make sense. And the John Q. public gets it all the time. They just don't make sense, and we get it all the time. We pay for someone else's improprieties,
See,
and it
Army
just
says
doesn't.
no to more tanks, but Congress insists. Congress is insisting on spending billions of dollars on new tanks when the Army is saying we don't need them.
Insider trading.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what that's
exactly what
about.
that
That's
is.
about these congressmen because that's come up as a campaign issue in Richard Burr's senatorial campaign here in North Carolina. He's been there for 20 years, voted 7 times to increase his pay, voted against Congress being prohibited from using insider information that they are privy to profit from. And this man has become a multimillionaire. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I thought
Mm,
public service was about you know,
public service.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't know you can get
yeah,
rich
public
doing
service.
public service, so
Yeah,
I'm in the wrong
public service.
field, y'all.
Yeah, okay, me too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of becoming a public servant. Yeah, because if you can get rich that way in a short period of time, maybe that's something I might take
Well,
up.
when
That's
Eric Cantor left Congress, uh, he immediately got a job paying, was it 3 million a year, something like that?
As a lobbyist,
No, he I can't remember who he went to work for, um, but
well,
immediately.
look at the bozo Sarah Palin. Look at her. She called herself a public servant, running for one of the highest seats in the land. She claimed she was a public servant, and look at her now.
Yeah, that was a
She's
joke, and then she quit.
That's a joke, and she's the mother of a. Oh, never mind.
And she's the only person in the world that could quit a job and saying, "I'm not a quitter."
Yeah. Hmm.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Come on, come on. Well, we're getting close to our time limit. And one of the other things that I wanted to give out, Ken, we gave out the phone numbers. You gave that out. We also have an email address. So if folks don't get to the show and they want to comment on the show, please, we are Change Matters 99 at Gmail. Remember, Change Matters 99 at gmail.com. So send us your comments, your questions, even your solutions, because we are a show of solutions. We're talking about the election because this is a very, very sensitive time. It's a tenuous time. This is a time when people need to understand you've got to get out and vote. You absolutely have to exercise your right and you have to vote. It's your responsibility. We've got to get this done. This is a very, very crucial time, and not voting is not even an option. So I hope you're registered. Yesterday was the last day to register here in California. You've got to get out and register, even if it means everybody has to carpool. And there's no law, there's no constitutional law against carpooling to your polling place. So get out and vote. Call in. Next week, we're going to have a guest on from Pasadena, John Kennedy, who's going to come on and talk to us about politics again. Councilman John Kennedy from Pasadena. And on election day, we're going to have a senator on. So we've got some very good, lively, juicy, juicy shows coming up. And we're highlighting the election. We're talking about the moron and Hillary Clinton. And for those of you that want to be mad at me for calling that person a moron, show me that he isn't. And I'll call him whatever he is, because he just ain't real.
Well, there's an
But
article
again,
on Huffington Post. Trump claims military has conceptually endorsed him.
yeah, that sounds like at the debate when he says, oh, yeah, I talk to the generals all the time. Yeah, we talk all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
What, really? What general, walking, talking, living, and breathing, will spend 5 seconds talking to something like that? You have nothing in common with a general. Really? He's the same person that said, I've always wanted to have a purple, was it the purple heart?
Purple heart.
Yeah, who wants to have a purple heart?
And he also said last week he kind of feels like he's sort of a blue collar guy.
Yeah, come on, really?
Yeah. And then people eat that stuff up.
Yeah. That's just insane. Who wants to have a purple heart? Who wants to have a purple heart? Somebody that's been damaged and injured and put their life on the line. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that at all. He lies, he cheats, he steals. Come on.
Even Glenn Beck is calling him a frightening sociopath.
And that's yeah.
Now, Glenn Beck, calls you a frightening sociopath. And I tell you, he's in a war with Fox News.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, we are at the bottom of the hour. The top of the hour. So it looks like we'll have to cut this one. It always goes by so fast. Again, this is Change Matters. Thanks for joining us this time. And thanks for those folks who have been sending us emails. We really thank you for your input. And we'll be in touch. Send us email, call us. Have a great week, and we'll talk with you next week. I'm Kenny Hendricks.
Yeah, I'm Colette Williams, and we will come back to you next week at the same time, same place, same station. Join us. We've got a lively conversation coming up next week. As I said, our guest will be John Kennedy, Councilman John Kennedy from Pasadena, California. So join us. We're at election time, and we need to know what you're thinking. We want you guys to help us bring solutions. It's up to us. We've got to bring solutions to these things that are going on in our communities. So join us again. We're signing off. Thank you again for joining us. I am Colette Williams. Take care.